Hello and welcome to the Blue Room post-match. I'm Dave Downey, joined by Les Roberts, and we're looking back on Everton's frustrating 1-1 draw away at Brentford today. Our second point of the season, richly earned. Many are saying, others are saying a few different things. I don't think, Les, before I come to you, obviously on Twitter we get some opinion of everybody asking what they feel from the game and stuff like that. A 1-1 draw, Brentford scored with 5 minutes to go. Makes it so frustrating that Everton probably could have held that out and won that game 1-0. Whether we deserve to win it 1-0, whether we deserve to draw or even lose, remains to be seen. But the opinions that I've received so far from many of our listeners and people who subscribe to the Blue Room have said that they thought we deserved to lose that game because we were abysmal the way in which we played. I mean, me and Les obviously have a short briefing before we start these things when we get the post-match underway, because we try to get it out as quickly as possible after every single game. And I think, Les, I think the pair of us agreed that, I mean, I put on my tweet, and I normally put like an initial thought as soon as halftime comes and then as soon as the game finishes, just to get like a knee-jerk reaction if I can, because I think that's I think it's really interesting when people just, that sort of quick feeling you've got of a game as soon as it finishes. And mine was that I thought we largely defended well, and I've been given some pelters for that, firstly. But also, I thought the draw probably fair if you were a neutral watching that game. Yes, okay. Most people will say that we should have lost it because they hit the woodwork 3 times during the game, did Brentford. But to go 1-0 up, to keep that for, obviously more than 90% of the game, Everton were in front in that. There are positives to come back from that, I think, and I know people are going to do the usual, yeah, but we didn't win. It was only 2-2. We desperately need a striker. Well, we went and bought one yesterday, didn't we? As good as we'll have a chat in a minute. Whether you think of what everybody thinks about him and getting Neil Mopay and what he's going to do. But what are your initial thoughts, Les? Because I thought, I mean, I suppose from everything I've just said there in my intro to this, each of a win, a draw, or a loss, there are probably arguments to be made in each of those categories for this, aren't there?
Yeah, I think so. If we win that, everyone's saying, "Oh, it's a smash and grab." Everton have gone there, got the relatively early goal, defended pretty well, kept them out all game, come away with the 3 points. It's the sort of away performance that we've sort of been hit with quite a lot ourselves in recent years, where the team have just come and we've had a lot of the ball, not been able to do anything with it. They've scored the goal, they've gone home with the points. So I think that there was definitely a case to be made for us to win. Again, a case for us could be made that we should have got beat. But, they had those quite decent chances. At least Tony's header was a real decent chance. And the follow-up volley, they should have scored from that without a doubt. One of them should have netted there. But they didn't. They didn't take the gilt-edged chances like that. So, while you can say, yeah, okay, they had, I think, I've got the stats here. It was they had 19 shots, 5 on target. We had 14, 7 on target. So, we did create a lot of chances in that game. And, for the away side to come and do that, an away side that's not started the season particularly well, I don't think the start of the season has been as fatalistic as people have been making out. I think there's definite, signs of improvement on the sort of malaise we found ourselves in a point during last season. So I think to look at that game and think, oh bloody hell, we should have got beat there. I think it's a little bit negative, dare I say. I'm not the most positive person in the world, but I can look at that game and think, you know what, there was some things we did well in that game. Even though they did create a few chances, they were down to individuals switching off. Even the goal was down to, I think we said it, didn't we, when we were talking before, Alex Iwobi just switched off that little bit when they scored. And that's always the worry with the way we're playing at the minute. We're playing on the tightest of margins. We're playing basically to try and not concede and nick a goal because there's not much of a goal threat. I think one thing that's been sort of you can look at positively in the three, is it three or it's 4 league games now, isn't it?
Mm.
Incrementally got better at creating chances, I think. And I think there's signs that the team are growing. I still don't like this formation at all, but
No.
I think there's signs that the team are growing into it. And I think today was, probably our best performance. Would you say? I think we did quite. I think we did all right there today. I was quite happy with how the game was going. It was always tight, and you're always thinking they couldn't. If we got a second, if Damari Gray scores that chance when Onana plays him through, if we get that second, that's game over there. But that's what I'm saying. The game they were playing to the tightest of margins. So if we don't take our chances, the other team are probably going to take one of theirs at some point, and that's the only thing I really don't like about the way we're playing now. I don't think we're not good enough to keep a clean sheet, but we're not really good enough to score more than one, which is a bit of a worry.
Yeah,
So,
that's a really good balanced way of putting it, to be honest, because, you know, I think I was so frustrated when Gray goes through, doesn't he?
yeah,
I think I think if that's Gordon, then we probably bag. I think that's a couple of others that we probably bag as well. But I don't know what it is about that lad. I actually think he's epitomised his entire career since we've signed that lad. Because
yeah.
sometimes I've looked at him and he does some wonderful, wonderful things, and you're like, this fella is just full of talent. And then I'd say for more than half of the rest of the time that he plays for us, I think you can see why Leicester wanted rid of him. You can see why he's not made it at international level to a high point. You can see why he's ended up at Everton. That famous old Matt Jones saying, "There's a reason why players end up at Everton." That's very much, that looks him in the face as soon as you look at
Yeah.
Damari.
I think the annoying thing about that chance for me today was last week when he got played through. So we're right behind that when Pickford
Yeah,
plays the ball through. And as soon as he takes it down, it's like he's scoring this. I had no doubt in my mind he was
Gordon.
scoring
Yeah,
that. Same against Burnley last season when he got played through. Today, he just hesitated. He normally hits them quite early. But he just took a bit too long. I don't know if the defender just got a little bit of him to put him off his stride. I think his first touch wasn't great, but it was just frustrating because he normally would slot that for me, but
yeah.
it wasn't meant to
I
be.
think the one thing that's sort of sitting staring me in the face, the elephant in the room, I think, is the fact that we've got a new striker. I think striker in inverted commas in Neil Mopey, but we'll get onto that in a bit after we discuss most of the game here. Who's going to come in? That hopefully, I think many fans would say it's hopefully the last time we see Everton like that. Given that we've got a new player coming in there to play in the attacking side of this setup here. But I just want to go back and discuss a little bit what you said there about the way in which we set up here with this, line of five at the back. Now I'm starting to think when I see it more and more, Les, that it's almost like it has to be that way simply because, well, I think it's pretty obvious the reason why it is that way is simply because of now that Cody's come in, you can't look at that side and then think, oh, we'll automatically go into a back four because I don't think you can play Cody in a back four. I think he's notoriously, it is quite well known that he's not great in a back four. That's the whole reason that Wolves have let him go. Otherwise, I don't think Wolves would have him anywhere near the transfer.
Yeah.
Because he's been their captain for years. He's a main England defender now, isn't he? He's going to be going to the World Cup. And the way in which he plays as a sweeper for Southgate as well. I'm sure there's several managers in the game who've worked with him in the past have said, anytime he is at my team, I have to start with a back five because he'll give us everything we need to keep a clean sheet in a game. Or I think that's what you want. 9 times out of 10, he's going to be doing that for your successful team. I think where it becomes a difficulty for us is I'm not necessarily sure the Tarkovsky or Holgate are particularly comfortable with that. I don't think the full-back positions. Sometimes I think Patterson's brilliant. I think he's going to be top class, by the way.
Yeah.
And I think Mikalenko is a really, really consistent left back. But sometimes when I look at their positional sense of where they end up, those flash moments during the opposition's attack or when we're moving forward, or the worst of things, when we've got the ball, we start trying to move out of defence and transition into an attack. Our full-backs move forward. But then if we lose the ball in midfield, you're like, what are we doing here now in the wide positions? And that's when I think a 5-man defence isn't particularly on on their two shoulders. I think that's more to do with, well, if it was a back four, we'd be ripped apart. I think that's why Lampard probably looks at it that way, and I'd love to hear him talk about this and hear his thoughts on this. That when we play with three centre backs, it lightens up the midfield a little bit, doesn't it? It makes you have almost like an automatic front three. That sort of, when we don't have a striker up there, which is exactly what I've just pointed out with Mopai coming in. Mopai coming in now that things hopefully change for the better as we go forward and we get Calvert-Lewin back. Be interesting to see how he mixes that about up there. Does Lampard. But yeah, I think this is a major concern from me. And I think the other big thing as well that many people have complained about on social, Les, is the substitutions from Frank Lampard as well. When he puts Rondon on, he takes Onana off for Tom Davis. What were your thoughts on the way in which he went about it today?
The thing that's frustrating for me is it was possibly calling out for a formation change to go for it like we did against Villa.
Yeah.
People are probably sick of hearing me say this because I say it every time I come on it seems, but what I don't like about the 3-4-3, which is essentially what we're playing, is I think if you're gonna play five at the back, play five at the back and just be like, yeah, we're being defensive, don't even care. That's the plan, for defensive. When you're playing three at the back and then your fullbacks are sort of, they need the midfielders nor fullbacks, they're kind of something in between. I think that leaves the defence a bit light. And as you said before, when Patterson, I think that happened a couple of times in the first half, when Patterson went to break up and the move broke down, there was a couple of situations where there was a man spare the other side of Holgate while Patterson was getting back. And I think that's the kind of issue you have when you don't have the three midfield. So I think if you play five at the back, you play three in the middle. You play three centre midfielders and then two up front somehow in some formation or other. Because, as you said, it leaves you light in midfield when you play this, two in the middle. And the fullbacks, they're not midfielders, so they will not do that midfield job. And I think you see that, especially with Mikalenko, because he's very much a fullback. He's not a wing back. His instinct is to defend, and his instinct's not to really even break down across the ball, is it? He always cuts back and plays it back. He's very much a defender. Patterson's different. I think he can do that fullback job, but I just don't think the balance is there. So I think you need to just say, right, we want to play five at the back and just say it's five at the back. Nothing wrong with it. Because as you say, I don't think we've got the personnel to really be comfortable with four at the minute. But yeah, the substitutions, the annoying thing is, yeah, I thought he was going to take a centre-back off and go 4-3-3 like he did against Villa with Davis, Onana and Iwobi in the middle, which worked really well towards the end of that game. Could have worked really well towards the end of this game as well. So it's just frustrating when managers do that like for like substitution and don't really change anything at all. Because Tom Davis wasn't going to bring anything to the game that Onana did during that game. He wasn't going to do anything different.
Exactly. It wasn't a change you looked at and thought we're bringing him on here to make things more positive for us going forward.
Yeah, it was just Onana's been getting a bit of a kicking again. He might be knackered. Let's bring him off. Instead of just thinking, maybe gambling a little bit. I suppose maybe with the game coming up on Tuesday and then the derby on Saturday, that could be playing on his mind a bit because the last thing we need now is any sort of injury to anyone. So maybe he's looking at that because I think he has had two pretty rough games, Onana, hasn't he? He's been kicked all over the shop. It happened again today. He had a few tasty tackles put in on him today. So, maybe he's looking out for him in that respect. But it is just frustrating when there was a chance to go for it there because, for all the sort of chances they had, it looked like it could have been one of those days for them. We've had it ourselves, haven't we, where you just do everything but score. And it did look for a long time, 85 minutes exactly, that it was going to be like that for them. So yeah, it's just a bit frustrating that he never went for it. But I don't know, I think he's sort of cautiously feeling his way into the season, isn't he, given the options he's got? Which you can't really blame him, but it is a bit frustrating for me.
Yeah, I think that's something else I'll look at in regards to these. Well, less than a week left in the window now. What we need to go and do. I think as much as I've tried to put a sort of positive tone on certain parts of that game, going 1-0 up, defending it all the way. right up until the end there. We would have took a scrappy 3 points. I think a scrappy 3 points would be the best 3 points we could possibly take these days. So I
Yeah.
would have taken that. But I still can't look at what we've seen so far this season in those opening 4 league games. Forget the Fleetwood one, without thinking that we're still going to be in and around the relegation battle. The way we are, Les, and you look, it's easy for many people. It's really, really easy for many people listening to this. You'll turn and say, Dave, we're only 4 games in. You know, things can change. We can do better. We can do this. We can do that. We can do whatever. Well, that heavily gets thrown onto Neil Maupay's shoulders now, doesn't it? Because he's very much seen as the sort of white knight now that's come in as a striker. And again, I say it in inverted commas because I don't think he is a natural goal-scoring striker. I think he's a real gnarly, last type of striker he's loads of. In fact, we're all going to love him if he does what we've seen him do at Brighton, and that is like proper, proper wind people up and all that. Is that the thing that bags goals for Everton? I'm not so sure about that. That's why I've remained hesitant, really. Where at first, when I saw we were in, I was like, please, no, that's not what we need. Then I've changed my mind and thought, well, what are you going to get? The dollar for your buck that you're going to get when all Everton can afford really is around that amount of money what we spent on him. And Diaz potentially comes our way from Blackburn as well. That's just the complete unknown in my opinion. I know he's had a really good last season for Blackburn, but that's the Championship. Let's hope he's not back in those ways if he comes to play for us.
Do you know what I'm thinking about that? So basically, a lot of people have been saying he's a Stephen Naismith kind of player, Maupay. Which would be great because if Stephen Naismith won loads of free kicks in really good areas, but we had really good free kick takers and people who could score at that time.
Yeah.
Now we kind of waste our set pieces, I think. So, if you can do that, if you break the game up and you can get free kicks and things like that, that'd be brilliant. My worry is with the two of them, it could be a Naismith and Jelavic situation.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
To be a Jelavic, Johnny.
Yeah. Which part of that?
I just been doing really well one season, and then
if it was the Jelavic we had in the first 6 months that he was there, then absolutely I'd take that. But I don't think he's that. And then, I'm sort of edging my bet towards the later leaving Naismith / Jelavic way in which they ended their time with the football club. Unless we forget, they were both in much better teams than Everton is these days as well, which is a little bit worry. And I think today's performance. I think I think a lot of people today, or everyone who went the game, everyone who's been watching it, everyone who's discussing it now, everyone who's listening to this, in their minds will be, well, Maupay's going to come in and he's going to probably start against Leeds. I'd be shocked if he didn't. Given the way that we've lined up this front three that hasn't done much so far this season in the first 4 games. In fact, I think every time everyone's looked at spells during this game and pretty much since they found out that we were signing him yesterday or the day before yesterday that he was going to be coming to Goodison, I think many people will have started sort of writing down their starting 11s with him involved and what you do with him, what you do with Calvert-Lewin comes back later on, hopefully sooner rather than later, how he fits about. People throwing about, he's the exact type. He's a carbon copy of Richarlison. I'm not so sure I agree with that. I agree with the sort of our last perspective of him. I agree with he'll do everything for this football club, and I really like that about the lad. It's the quality side of the thing that I think that there's too little of, given what we absolutely desperately need. And yes, of course, I know that's the place we have to shop at now. That's the market we've got to go through, given the position we're in. We're not going to get somebody who we need as a almost guaranteed 15, 20 goal a season striker. That's not going to happen. I completely accept that. Sadly, that's the way it is. But I'm looking at that today and I was thinking, who would they take out straight away and throw Maupay in? It would have to be McNeil, because I think McNeil started with an absolute stinker since he's come in.
You know what? He didn't do too bad today, just purely because I don't think he did anything wrong. He
problem I
played
have with
everything
them, Les,
very
is, and I
safe.
know this is something you see criticism of almost all the time with left-footed players, is that you're too left-footed, and the reason people say that is because, oh, it sticks in my head that he's left-footed because you normally see 9 times out of 10 every other player that simply is right-footed, and no one comments on a player who's got a right foot. It's always the ones who've got left foots because they're the rarity in the sport.
Yeah,
Uh, but I do see people's points when they've said that when he gets the ball, I think unless almost instantaneously within 2 or 3 seconds of him collecting the ball and not whipping it in and not finding a forward pass, I think he's stuck. And I think that's where he probably lacks, because if you're a defender and you're going to do a little bit of homework with your manager and the coaching staff before games, aren't you? You're going to say if McNeil's starting and you're the person that has to mark him and get in and amongst him, then almost immediately you get on his shoulders straight away. Then I think you've won your battle with him, and I think it's too easy for people to win the battle with him. I think that's the reason why he was at Burnley. That's the reason why he's ultimately came to us, and other clubs have not gone in for him,
yeah,
because every time I've seen us do business or been linked with players all summer long, I've thought, yeah, this looks like every player we're going to be looking at is going to be Newcastle related. Newcastle probably going to want a similar player or the same player that we're after. And lo and behold, it didn't seem to me like Newcastle were ever looking at coming in for McNeil, and I think there's a reason why. Whereas others we've got in for, you have heard those rumours. Wouldn't surprise me if Eddie Howe looked at Mopai, or looked at like Cody, or looked at Tarkovsky without a shadow of a doubt, because he'll have worked for the money when he was down at Burnley years
yeah.
ago. I think the reason why he's not gone for McNeil is because he sees. I'm not saying he's a bad footballer, but I just think he's got limitations, and I think we have to. I simply put, we have to have Calvert-Lewin up front for him to shine.
Yeah.
I think that's the main headline I'd throw in regards to McNeil now. Otherwise, when you're putting him in a front three, I can scarcely remember him having the ball today, Les. I thought Anthony Gordon, and look, probably the two main things we have to talk about in regards to is on top of the post match and the result today, where we drew 1-0, we come away with a point. We desperately need to bag our first 3 points as soon as possible. Away at Leeds and at home to Liverpool is quite scary looking forward. That really, isn't it? We'll get onto that in a second or so, but yeah, I mean, I'll look at the situation now with what we have to do with the players that we have, and the Anthony Gordon situation is not going to go away literally until it goes past 11 p.m. next Thursday, and this I don't know, idea that Chelsea and him for him. Lampard said they haven't even now offered the 60 million. I think Sky have rumoured to have said that it has been offered. And I've instantaneously said I think we need to sell him straight away if that £60 million is what's coming in. I think it's a really difficult decision to make if the offer has been installments over several years. You're getting 60 million. That's no good for us. No. That is no good for us whatsoever, unless they're given 90% of 60, so basically 50 million quid in our arse pocket right now. Then I don't see us worth selling them now. And I think today as well, I think, many people have said, I think the majority of Blues have said that for that level of cash, then I think we do have to sell them at around 60 million quid, whatever the fee is going to be. But in his defence, I thought he was brilliant today for the most part. When the ball was thrown to him, seemed like he was playing centre forward on his own for a lot of the game. Now and again did drift to the wing like he's naturally going to do, because that's his natural game, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I thought he took his goal magnificently as well. The way it's played to him by Cody, loves that diagonal. In fact, I think him and Tarkovsky are born to play in a 3-man centre-back role, because they love playing those diagonals. I'd throw Jagielka in with them both, and you just see them doing that all day long too. The ball's great. I like the way he lets it run across him and then finishes it with his left foot. Stunning finish. And how many times has that happened when players are in the headlines and then they go and score a goal and they're even more so in the headlines? I think Thomas Tuchel and the rest of Chelsea will be looking at that tonight and there'll be a few people sort of saying, "Yeah, let's go and get him now." Whatever happens with that, but it needs to be sort of quickly, Les, because you know, do you feel twixt in between with this? Take away the fee. It seems that I've had a massive argument with a really good friend of mine as that game was on today. He's a Liverpool fan, but he was just talking to me about Anthony Gordon. He went, "Why on earth are you selling that lad?" I said, "We're selling him because we're in a pretty desperate situation to need to sign other players." I think that's otherwise it'd feel more Wayne Rooney esque of. And I'm not saying he's anywhere near as good as Rooney was at that age, but it would feel more towards me like we're losing a talent that I badly want him to stay. And I'd be saying that immediately, other than the fact that we're in a massive mess in terms of the squad. We still need players, and it doesn't look like we've got enough money to go and recruit what we absolutely need to be comfortable this season. So, the way you were there the other night, the other day, I couldn't make it. It's a Goodison when he was sort of on his own on the pitch, clapping Gladys Street. It looked to me like all intents and purposes that he's off.
Yeah.
Then doesn't play Fleetwood, but then comes back in away at Brentford. Now, what are you feeling towards this now? Because just to reiterate, because this is post match, of course, I thought his finish was really good, and I thought there was a lot of positives about his game and getting involved with everything we did occasionally well this afternoon.
Yeah, there was. I think just to pick up on how he played today, I think it was his best performance of the season in that position, especially. So a lot's been asked of him to play sort of down the middle and act as the striker. And I think the first game he just looked completely lost, as you would do if you're like not a big player, a relatively slight lad being asked to do the centre forward job that would normally be filled by Calvert-Lewin. You're gonna find it tough. What he did today that was good, he wasn't jumping for the flick-ons. He was jumping just to put the defender off, and it was working because there was some wayward headers going left, right, and centre from their defence, and he was just being a bit cuter with his game and just getting his body in the way and just trying to make it a little bit tough for the defender because he knew he had no chance of winning the header. So I did like that part of his game. I thought he looked on it today. His touches were good. He played some neat passes. His turns were good. His goal was brilliant. As I said, the ball from Cody, his touch and finish was unreal. Really, really good, and that won't have done him any harm for any sort of transfer fee we're going to get from him if we do. But as you say, it's an odd one, and it's an indictment on how badly the club's been run. The fact that we're looking at it thinking, do you know what, give us that 60 million because we need it and we could invest it in the team in other areas. Which is always with the caveat we might not invest it in the team because we might not get the chance to if we keep sort of this Mexican standoff with Chelsea. And you just wonder if you trust them to invest it right. Because just going back to Mope as well, the most frustrating thing for me, why didn't he just get it done so he could play today? Even from the bench. He's an ex-Brentford player. He's a wind-up merchant. He'd have absolutely loved going there today. He would have been properly up for it there today. But no, I don't even know if anyone said in the club, we tried our hardest to get it done. I don't even know if they said that. It's just, we signed him, but he's not playing. It's like, why not? You've had, if not all summer, at least all week to get this done. Why haven't you got it done in time? It's no skin off Brighton's nose if he plays for us today. It's just they're just a bit pathetic in that regard, and that's the thing that worries me. The fact that they're either going to wait too long, accept a late offer from Chelsea because they're trying to get as much money as possible, which isn't good enough for us because whether we get 60 million today or 70 million on Thursday, take the 60 million today. It's going to be more useful. It's not going to be any use on Thursday because we won't get anyone. So it's annoying. The thing that has sort of upsets me most about it is the fact that I don't really feel bothered if he goes. Which is sad, isn't it?
Mm.
I was down at Chelsea last season when I think he set up Brantwaite, didn't he? For the goal, he whipped a free kick and Brantwaite scored it, and he had a cracking game down there. And I just remember when he was walking down towards the crowd and we were all singing Anthony Gordon to him, the look on his face was just absolutely priceless because he couldn't believe it. You could see him like thinking, "Oh my God, this is the best thing in the world." Not that I've made it, but this is brilliant. This is what I want. And to feel like from that night thinking, oh my God, this lad's going to be class, and everyone's singing his name, to now thinking, oh, if we got 60 million, yeah, let's take it. I'm not bothered. It's horrible. And I hate that the club's making me feel like that, because it shouldn't be. We should be like gnashing our teeth about this, saying, no, we shouldn't be letting him go. But the situation we're in, like you said, we've not really got much choice. And it's just a massive indictment on how badly the club's been run. I know that's not one for post match, but it's just dead frustrating at just how thoroughly shit we are at everything.
It's interesting you say this. It's not. You're right. It's not instantly for the post match what we talk about a lot, but sadly, that's the way the transfer window is. That we're still going to be banging on about the transfer window up until beyond Thursday night, when obviously Rob Vera will be involved because he loves doing the transfer window stuff and all that. It's going to be a really good show. I hope I'd implore anybody to get involved in it, whatever happens on Thursday night and whatnot. We'll have plenty of coverage talking about it throughout the week. But it seems like it's so heavily entwined between everything that's going on with the club, even the way we play now, isn't it? Because like we've just mentioned there, his performance today, I thought he was probably our best player, given man of the match of. So, yeah, I think there was a few of the candidates in there. I think Onana, when he was playing, he did a ridiculous bit of skill that made me. I started drooling when he did it in the first half, when he just knocks it around one of their players ridiculously.
Yeah.
By the way, how quick is that lad? He is lightning. He is lightning quick. And
Yeah.
it's not often you get big, powerful players who are also really, really quick. It's not often you see both. It's normally one or the other with many players. So I'm really excited to see what comes from him. And I really wish he was in a much more easier circumstance for him to settle himself at Everton. But lo and behold, the fact we're talking about all sorts of different disasters going on. But just to go back to your point there, I think that's so well said by what you've mentioned there with Gordon Les. And yeah, it is. It's obviously difficult not to talk about it, even regarding a game that he's played in, because the reason why we're so fixated by talking about whether you want him to go, whether you want him to stay, whether you think it's impossible not to want him to go, given that it's 60 million quid that we desperately need. Yes, I think ultimately everybody's attention has to turn back and point towards the board or particular individuals in and around the board. Fortunately, some of which who might have gone or who might be as involved as they used to be, i.e. the actual owner, which again is sad enough and ironic enough to say. And we want Threlwell to be the person who's ultimately what gets to me is I feel sorry for that fella Threlwell that he's come in. Because obviously he's got pedigree, he's got a career where he's done so well. That's why he's ended up at Everton. But he was over at Wolves, he was in the MLS, he knows players, he seems to be. I'd love us to find out some more information about the way in which we scout players. And there's a lot of things we aren't quite sure of with that, obviously, but he's involved with recruitment. He's head of the recruitment alongside Lampard, if he's involved. I hope Paul Clement's involved. Ashley Cole's probably involved. We don't know the full. This has always been the issue with the club. We don't fully know. We're never communicated with what we need. No, nobody's screaming the club to tell us who we're going after. Everybody knows that's not the way things work with transfers and Premier League clubs. But we do know, we should know, as these are custodians for the club. They're not like us, who are always going to be in and around the football club. You should be telling us, or we should be able to know easily enough about who decides what, who does what, what's the communication like in the football club. And I know, look, I sound like several people who bang on about communication in the football club, but it's something that just never ever seems to go away because it's never ever solved.
I don't think it's too. I mean, the club don't have to tell us, and that's fair enough. It's like, and you don't really care about communication when you're not shit. I think when you're doing well, you're not really that bothered, because all the communication's quite nice then, isn't it? And the club will tell you loads of stuff and it's all nice and it's lovely. When you're not doing well, it's frustrating, because you're kind of looking at it and you think, you look at the Onana signing, for instance. We seem to go after him just to pip West Ham to him. So then you're automatically thinking, well, have we only gone for him because we saw West Ham were in for him? We thought, oh, we can get him. Or do we have someone out in France going, looking at these players? Do we have someone out in Spain? Do we have someone in South America? And I don't think that's too much to ask that the fans know. The club should be actively saying, we've got scouts here, there, and everywhere. This is how we do it. There's nothing wrong with saying that. It's no secret how clubs scout players because they all do it the same way.
Mm.
But it just feels like still it's very, very sort of hand to mouth and last minute seat of the pants stuff. I think I was speaking to Paddy on, I think we did mailbag the other week, and we were speaking to Paddy about this. Obviously, working for the Athletic, he's closer to it than everyone, and he's sort of saying, well, it's difficult to know how the club's working. Are they in the position because they've been so poorly run and the money isn't there that they've got to sort of wait for late deals to try and push it through as late as possible to kind of try and unsettle players and sort of get them out the club. Do you know what I mean? At last minute, so the club just go, right, tell you what, just go then. Because if you don't go now, we've got to play for 4 months that we don't want. And is that why they're not going in for players early? Or, is there some other reason? Is it the way we've got to, I don't know. It's dead frustrating. And it's just to bring it back around to the post match, it's costing us in games like this today.
Yeah.
You kind of think if there were more options off the bench instead of three wide players trying to like mix and match to play as a striker at some point during the game, because I think they all had a go at some point. They kind of interchange. Um, instead of just having a striker there, if we had this defensive midfielder, we could maybe see Onana in a three, which,
Mm.
go judging by what happened at Villa
Yeah.
and probably judging of Fleetwood the other night, really, because, they're obviously a lower league side. He had more freedom, and you could see that as he grew into the game. He was taking more responsibility on, and you see that he's a player who wants to like sort of power forward. But the limited role he's playing now, a lot of the time during that game, he was given the simple pass, kind of doing what the Core does, just popping it back to the centre back. As the
Yeah.
game went on, he got better and he'd get his head up and have a look around. But being asked to play in a two. You've got it. You basically that's all you can do. Iwobi does it brilliantly. I think Tom Davis does it well as well. He just gets
Mm.
the ball, they'll turn, they'll pop it short, they'll go for the return. He's not that kind of player, but he's getting asked to do that role. Now, if we'd have got these players lined up early, got them in, and he could have played in a three, we could be seeing completely different results and a completely different player. And it's just games like this, this judges at the end of the transfer window. It's like, well, it's 5 games in, and then the sixth Liverpool, the seventh Arsenal. That's not really a luxury any board should be afforded. Um, so it is. It's frustrating because this run of games hasn't been particularly bad. Chelsea were clearly there for the taking on the opening
Mm.
day, as Leeds showed when they absolutely destroyed them last week. Villa were there for the taking because they're bad. I think this was there for the
As
taking.
Bournemouth showed the week before.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's these games, like we could have got a lot more points, and we're not in the position where we can. Although today was a welcome 1-1 draw, because as I think we said before the game, probably would have taken the draw, particularly
Yeah.
given how we've been playing, how they played against Man United. There was a worry there that they could have turned us over. Don't think they'd look like doing that at any point during the game, no matter how many times they hit the bar or the post. I think we did all right, as we said at the start. But it's frustrating because we could have got more, but the club is just so slow to get everything done, and there's no urgency there, and it's just frustrating ultimately, isn't it? Like that game today, it was a bit of a microcosm, wasn't it? There was a lot of enthusiasm there once we scored, and we thought, what, we're doing all right. First half, I think we had 61% possession. We were pretty much all over them, even though I think they hit the post twice in the first half, didn't they, or something like that? They hit the post, Sky done in the first half, didn't
Mm.
they? So yeah, it was a sort of microcosm of this summer, this game whereby there was a little bit of optimism, thinking, okay, we might do something here. Like in the early summer when we signed Tarkovsky and Cody, thought, okay, yeah, this is sound. And then ultimately it just sort of fizzled out, and we got a draw.
Yeah, I
This is
think
where
as
we
well.
are.
What we're starting to see as well, Les, before we have this little chat about Neil Mopai, who's going to be hopefully starting against Leeds on Tuesday. But I think now we're getting to a stage of a transition of, okay, so we feel as if we've got decent enough players, we've done decent enough recruitment over the week, over the summer. I'd probably go along with that. There's different levels that people think. A lot of people are saying, oh, it's been 9 out of 10, the players you brought in with Cody, Tarkovsky, Onana, whatnot, and Vinagre as well. I think probably becomes more and more seen as the season goes on. I think as we play more and more games, I think he's going to become more and more involved. All of that stuff that we've done. I think that is starting a little bit to what I see on social media, because obviously I'm that sad of a person to constantly start looking at what people are saying almost 24/7. Me, Les, as you know, that I'm seeing uh, maybe not so much as criticisms towards Lampard, but I've had so many replies recently in all of the games that have been like, why can't Frank see that he needs to make this particular change, this substitution, the way in which, like you mentioned, there should have been a big transition in terms of the formations we had when we were making subs, and the way in which different players were playing, in the little nuances in different positions on the pitch. Um, Look, I think that's where things will get really messy. Whilst we're still waiting for our first Premier League win of the season, and whilst we're still waiting on Everton actually clicking together and putting in a really good 90-minute performance and winning a game and getting 3 points, I think a lot of people are becoming more and more tetchy towards all this and starting to think, this isn't looking great from Lampard. How's he not able to get a tick out of the players that he signed and whatnot? I think what's it's the wrong thing to say. I think what's saving him, and again, I think I'm using inverted commas all the time, all the way through this, but what's saving him is the fact that we don't have the recruitment, the full recruitment that we've wanted for several months. I think the thing that many people are getting to is the fact that Richarlison was sold start of June and we still haven't replaced him. And I think it's really unfair if Lampard gets 99% of the criticism that he does, because I think you then enter in a dangerous territory of blaming a new manager for stuff that isn't really his fault. Look at what he come in and took over. Look at the ecstasy that we all had when we got the win against Palace and stayed up. You know, this has been an incredibly, I don't know, there's so much frustration since he's been there. I have so much sympathy for that fella. Yeah. Yes, I know there needs to be an obligation from him where he looks like he's going to be somebody who takes this club forward. And I think he's getting the right level of support via most fans. But, you know, I don't think it's wrong to suggest I wouldn't have done that if I was Frank Lampard. I don't think we should have done that. And yes, everyone says things in hindsight and looks really, really clever, but doing it at the time is completely different. We get that.
Yeah.
But there are things that I think it's really unfair. I don't think you could criticise things he does without an asterisk next to it to say why it is the way it is, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with criticising the manager, because everyone should criticise the manager. Even if you're the best, Man City fans should criticise Pep Guardiola.
Well, look what they have won. This is a club that should have won the Champions League several times and have under him.
Yeah.
You get why there's criticism of him, but then you'll get other fans who aren't really overly asked either about their own club or other clubs and say, oh, yeah, but look at the amount of money they're allowed to spend. They should win absolutely everything. That's not how football works.
No.
If football worked that way, we'd have won a few things with the amount of money we've wasted since we got Machiri 6 years ago. Do you know what I mean?
That's the other thing, isn't it? That's the thing. This club has pretty much been in terminal decline for 6 years now.
The sad thing, Les, that's so well put what you've said there, because the sad thing is, there are so many different points. If this was written as a journal or if this was written as a documentary since Machiri took over, from the point when, let's say Martinez left, go from there all the way to where we are now, how many different times you could throw a dart on a timeline and say, that's where things went to shit. I would go as far as say there's probably a fair 100 or so different things that loads of different fans would say. Yeah. I think it'd be really interesting from like a psychological point of view, what people would say and how they've dealt with it and how they felt by it and whatnot. Us on the Blue Room, I think many of the people listening to us have said, how are you guys still going, given the way Everton have been for so long and whatnot, but we'll always still be here. Don't worry about that.
I'll tell you what will be interesting to go through at different points and see what we're saying on like the weekly or subs weekly and that, just to see sort of like the highs and lows of where we were with each manager and each flashpoint.
I was thinking, what film director would you get to have to go through everything we've ever done with a microscope and say that guy needs to see someone, you know? This fella needs to go and have a chat with somebody. Like, serious things are going on here. I know I'd certainly be a case in point from them themselves, to be honest.
I'd have David Cronenberg and just make it a horror film.
That's it, mate. Yeah, it's like there's another Halloween film coming out soon, isn't there? Like it is actually
This is the last
categorically
one.
with Jamie Lee Curtis, and I actually like them films. But there's been about 10 of them now, hasn't there? 11 of them,
Yeah.
whatever it is, and like all the other horror films that seem to like they can't think of new things, so they just make another one and another one and another one, like Psycho. There's about 15 of them as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
That feels like that feels like the way Everton are. That it's just like, oh, let's fix the club again. Let's start from floor zero here, and let's start building. Oh, we've got to do it again. We've got to do it again.
Everton
but,
as a horror film franchise makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. But given the point where now we're at a stage, I think it's been actually quite difficult, really, to become positive about any of this. And I know people would say that criticizing me anyway. In general, I think that's the thing that I'll always live with, people criticizing me for being negative about this. But here we are with the football club the way it is. I look at it now and think, how many times are we going to get another chance to sort this out? Because obviously what happened with Palace should have been the massive slap in the face, the definitive slap in the face for everybody involved in that football club who could sort this out. Yet we're sat here at the start of a new season, still with 34 more games to go in the Premier League, but we're still looking around at each other thinking, hang on, this still isn't looking any better, guys. This is still not looking like we've got this sorted. And that to me is what is quite terrifying, really, because yes, the immediate reply you'll get from so many people who'll be listening to this tonight, when everyone listens to the post-match, the thousands of Blues that get involved with us and whatnot, we're absolutely really grateful for it. But so many of them, a high proportion of them, I would imagine, are saying, oh, lads, you need to relax. We're only 4 games in. We'll get it right. Transfer window doesn't end until Thursday. How many times have you said day after day after day since that Palace game, since where we stayed up, and everybody's looking at each other saying, never again, never again. We all did that in 94, didn't we? We all did it in 98. We've all had stages of doing this. Mike Walker, stuff like that. There are echoes everywhere you look around this football club to those near enough catastrophes, Les. And I think there's only so many times you can do it before you get caught. There's only with your kicks down, and that's sadly that's where I'm not feeling that where I'm at right now, because yes, you physically can't do that given the fact we have so long to change things around. It's like life, isn't it? Whilst you've got everything in front of you to change and make changes, you can still change things for the better, for the positive. Yeah. But my word, the amount of times I tend to look at Everton every single day and think, yeah, it's not getting any better, this, lads. So to conclude this podcast, we've been going on for nearly over an hour now on post-match. We normally don't take that long. And we haven't spoke as much as we normally do about games because we've been that frustrated. But I do think we've gone in the right direction, talking about why things tend to be the way they are right now, despite the players we've signed.
Yeah.
One who's yet to put on his Everton shirt is Neil Mopai, who we've signed for around 15 million quid from Brighton, 20 odd goals in 100 odd games. I think a lot of people have referred to me when I've not really wanted them initially. Then I've sort of changed my mind and said, you know what? Probably the best we can get right now with the budget that we've got to spend. People are saying that there's a similarity with Richarlison. I think with a similarity against him, he's actually quite early. I think he's a bit of an arse. I think he's somebody who will try and ruff the feathers of everybody who you play. Somebody who'll more than happily stand in front of somebody else and do anything they possibly can to get ahead at the football club. I think, yes, I welcome that. I think, yes, that's something we probably do miss from Richarlison, and he will bring. Other side, quality, goal scoring. Personally, don't think that's what we're getting. If he scores, I said this the other day on one of the pods we did when I was talking to Matt. I would be relatively surprised, if we're sat here at the end of this season and any one of our players at least one has scored more than double figures.
Yeah.
Um, and Mope's in that thing. I think he's like that anyway. If you look at his career at Brighton, lest we forget, he's coming from a club that's been better than ours for the last year, 18 months, with one of the best managers in the game, by the way, who hasn't got him scoring at literally every week consistently. For Everton to get him to do that, I think it's going to take a hell of a lot. Despite that, he absolutely has to be one of the first names in the team sheet when we play Leeds away on Tuesday night.
Yeah, he's I'm just looking at the stats. He plays 30 odd games a season every season. He scores 8 to 10 goals. He sets up 2 or 3 goals. Not exactly anything to set the world alight, but as you say,
he's a mid-table player.
Yeah, he is.
You don't have the position of that. That's why I'm understanding. That's why I'm content with signing him, Les.
Yeah, that's for me. He is a mid-table striker. He has got a lot of character about him, and he can add something to that team, character-wise, and in his play and what he does in the game. Now, this is where I want to go with this. I think we just need to resign ourselves to having a few lower table finishes. Just like, forget qualifying for Europe. We're not that good. I said when we did the season preview, I said we'd finish 8th. And I thought, you know what? Everyone else is a bit shit. So if we're not that shit, we might be all right. But I just think we need to be realistic and just resign ourselves to having a couple of lower half table finishes. Let the manager build something. Give him the time. Don't bottle it. I think, right, we've got to get rid of this fella. If it goes a little bit wrong, give him time to build something, because that's something we've not done since Moshiri's been there. If you look at, like you said, Potter, he's flying this season. I think this has taken him 4 seasons to get to where he wants to be. And he's had several. I think he finished bottom half every season. This could be the season where it kicks on for them now. You've got to give them time. You've got to give these managers time. He wouldn't have lasted at Everton. If we'd have got Potter in, when we got, say, Ancelotti, let's say, he wouldn't be at the club now.
No.
Because he wouldn't have been given the time to build anything. He's gonna. When he signed from Brentford, he was like 43 games, 25 goals he scored. So he was flying with Brentford in the champ. He's like that Mitrovic type player. He looks like we're brilliant in the Championship, not great in the Prem. He's kind of that in between. But for where we are at the minute, that's all we can get. And I think that's where we all need to take a step back. This is certainly what I'm doing. I'm just thinking, this is as good as it gets for now. Let's just walk before we can try and run, because we tried it the other way and completely messed it up. So let's not go for the big money players. Let's sort of buy from a roundabout, buy from the Championship, like Moyes did, build something on the back of that. Players who aren't on the way down from another big club, or players who failed at a bigger club and they see us as a sort of a step down, but the money's good. Forget all that now. Get players in like this, players from the champ, build something, build a team of characters that can, all play for each other. Basically like what we did for 15 years under Moyes. Or 10 years, whatever it was. It's so long ago. I think that's where we are as a club now. It's shit because we shouldn't be, because we should never have spent that much money to be in the position we're in. But this is where we are, and I think we just need to just have a little reset of expectations and think we probably are going to be flirting around the relegation zone all season. If we finish bottom half, we probably will finish bottom half. It's not the end of the world if there's signs that we're gradually getting better.
I think what you're saying there is absolutely right, and I think like yourself, I've been a while to make peace with that. The excitement for the new stadium, even that's gone to my ass pocket, and I'm not getting that back out of my ass pocket until probably it's a couple of weeks before we all end up picking our new seats there and whatnot. As long as we're still in the Premier League, that's when I'll get as properly excited as we should well be right now. Because let's face it, and nobody's asked this question, I don't think, but if you were said right now, given what we've done since Moshiri came in, given what we could have done, what other clubs who've spent less money than us have done since Moshiri came in, and take it who spent like that, I don't know, Spurs. I don't know. Right now,
folks have spent it well, haven't they?
Yeah. A team that spent a lot of money but have spent it well.
West Ham have done decent. They've done
Yeah, there
decent
you go.
business.
There, yeah. Had you done anything even remotely Wolves? Had you done even remotely close to something that looks adequate and something that you look at and think, do you know what? I can't really complain about that because the club have spent money and we bought some really good players. We haven't spent well all the time, but let's say we've done all right here, and we are the side that we were for several years under Moyes as being the best. The rest has been the
Mm.
side that battles it out for Europa. They'll get in the Europa quite often. You'll see them probably have a poor start to the season, but they'll eventually come good. And I ironically actually think the fact that Moyes did that has taken a lot of time for many of us to wake up and think, hang on, this isn't the way things are anymore. Because when you started the season poorly under Moyes, notoriously, you get to the winter and spring and we start flying and winning
Yeah,
ridiculous amounts of points. I've started thinking that probably when he left. Martinez did similarly, didn't he, for the first year at least?
yeah.
But then beyond that, and it came to the Silver years, and then ridiculously stupid Benitez, Allardyce. My word, if I'd have said this to myself, who didn't know about this 5, 6 years ago, you probably would have said you need to go away in a straitjacket, Dave. What are you talking about? That's never going to happen at Everton. But if around then, if those things happened even remotely half decent, somebody who done a 6 out of 10 performance in their job from
Mm.
anyone who works at the club at any level, from recruitment to the board to the financial side of things, 6 out of 10 would have Everton finishing consistently, say 7th to 9th,
Easily.
uh, easily, given
Mm.
the amount of money that we've had. The reason why it's so difficult now with the club, and the reason why this is why you see so many people who want the owner to leave, which sounds as crazy, but would it have been that difficult for Everton to have done that? I don't think so, because we were in a really decent position to do that, both when we had Moyes, even when Martinez. You think of the bad years under Martinez, his last 2 years, where we finished 11th
11th.
twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't bite no hand off for that right now.
Freaking right,
And
yeah.
and this is why, like, this is so mind-blowingly difficult to properly think that this football club is going to get sorted,
Yeah.
because it's gone that far. It's just continuously dug a hole to the other side of the world. Never mind, you know, just really gone down a little bit, and we'll come back at some point. For us to become the club we were under Moyes, when we were in that best the rest, battling fourth, fifth, sixth with Villa, and a couple of other clubs. For us to get to that stage, we can't do that in any time in the near future. That is impossible to do
Well,
for that.
we can't with the current model of the owner shitting himself and sacking managers. Moyes wouldn't have made it past that second season under Mashiri.
That's an
We'd
excellent.
finished 17th and he'd have been gone.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really, really
And
valid.
this is I think this is where we're at. We need to, like, Lampard might not ultimately be the right man, but I think he needs to be given time to try and show what he can do, try and do it. And then if he can't do it after a couple of seasons, then maybe look at it and go, do you know what, this isn't working. But I think he
I
needs.
could see him walk. I could see him walking before he's sacked. I have to say.
Yeah, I've said this on mailbag. I think for me, there'd be a little bit of self-preservation for myself here, and I'd be looking at Anthony Gordon, thinking, okay, if they sell him under me now, that could be my ticket out of this, with like all my self-respect intact, because I've said I don't want to sell him. I'd be looking at it like that, because I wouldn't expect this club to do me any favors.
No, no, completely. There'll become a point. I would think there'll become a point, and I actually don't think he'd be far away from that. From looking at it and thinking, you know what, I want a good career in this, and I was really good at Derby. Probably walked out of Derby when I should have stayed. The Chelsea fiasco with not being able to sign players and whatnot, that ended in the shit. Look at what happened here at Everton. I'd start firstly thinking, am I a bit cursed whatever I am for the finances that happen at clubs that I'm working at? But I'd
Yeah.
also be sat there thinking, I want to start this career on an even keel. Really, I think I've been really unlucky in many ways. But if I'm trying to get to the top level, which he ultimately is, he's a young lad. As a football manager, he's a legendary player. He wants to get to the very top of the game. Probably wants to be the England manager at some point as well. I mean, I'll be looking at Everton thinking, do you know what? Maybe I need to cut this as soon as I can and move on to something that is a little bit easier for me to sort of cut my teeth at.
Mm.
Because him coming into the situation our club is at is really, really unfair. And yes, I completely get it. Yes, there'll be people saying, like we just did, there are a point where I criticise what he's done, a substitution he's made or hasn't made, or the tactics we've gone with. Absolutely. I'm not saying you can't say anything like that about him, but the ultimate feeling is that in general, take away the views of games and the way in which we've lost games or conceded goals and whatnot, my overall feeling towards it is sympathy towards that fella and the rest of everybody else in and around him. And look, we banged on about all sorts of stuff here, Les. We've nearly been going for 90 minutes ourselves here. Probably created about as many chances as Rondon did when he came on. But anyway, just the final words on Mopai we've got. How do you feel? What were you like when we first got him? Did you change your mind? And also, I'm pretty sure you'll agree he has to start away at Leeds.
Yeah, he's got to start that game. I was a bit nonplussed really because he's not, it's not a player name that gets your pulse racing, is it? But I know.
You understand why we
I know some Brentford fans on Twitter and they said they loved him at Brentford because he was. I mean, he scored loads of goals for them, but he was also a narky get. And I want to see that. I want to see a little bit of that at the club because I think that's something that team's missing. That sort of little nasty streak. So yeah, I'm happy with it. Better than what we've got. I know the bar's pretty low, but that's all we can ask for, isn't it?
Exactly it is. This conundrum, it's I think it's difficult for all of us. I think many of our listeners will know how ill I've been over the past year or so. I would go as far as saying Everton probably had something to do with that. Like the way they do lives, really. If you wake up feeling horrible on a day, I'm pretty sure Everton aren't far away from the reason you're feeling the way you are. But I do digress. But anyway, thanks for listening to us for a bumper post-match, which was post-match and a bit of everything else, really. In fact, I think you've probably had about 3 or 4 podcasts in one. So aren't you lucky? The fact that me and Les are still banging on when we probably want to go and have a nice glass of wine and think about things that aren't associated with Everton until Tuesday night when we go to Leeds and hopefully get our first 3 points. That's going to be a really tough game. They lost away to Brighton today, didn't they? Yeah, they did.
Yeah, 1-0.
Lost away at Brighton, so obviously Leeds away. Notoriously difficult game. Let's see what the Blues do anyway. Maybe by then we might have a player, we might not. Anthony Gordon might not be with us. He might still be with us, who knows? The fact that we're still talking towards the 1st of September on next Thursday when the transfer deadline ends. So it probably tells you a hell of a lot of why Everton are in this mostly part of the situation they're in right now anyway. But thanks so much for listening after all. Thanks so much for contributing to everything you do with our Patreon side of stuff. We're doing bagfuls of things. We're doing more and more things as well when the Everton women's season gets underway on the 4th, the day after the Merseyside derby. Make sure you get along to Walton Park to watch them. They're at home against Leicester. Hopefully it's in celebrations following the day before. If you don't make it, let's hope it's because you've been celebrating the day before. not so sure that's going to be the case, but anyway, do get along to as many as you can. I'm going to be doing loads of Pete Macher is going to be doing loads and loads of coverage of the Women's Super League throughout the season with Everton women, getting some exclusive interviews, talking to the team, the players and everything. So we're really excited about all of that, along with all the other content we do, regardless of how good or bad Everton are doing. Please get involved. Patreon.com/the Blue Room Extra if you want. It's dead cheap. It's £4.50 a month. You never notice it going out your bank, and even if you don't like it, you can cancel it and you don't have to pay anything for it. There's no obligation whatsoever. Thanks so much for listening to us anyway. Check out make sure you're on Twitter, all the social media. You find out what we've got coming up pretty much day after day. There's a podcast, so do get involved, do join us, and thanks so much for listening, and we'll speak to you soon. Up the Toffees.